In this activity, we'll be creating a program that utilizes traits. Traits allow you to share functionality across your program. Once you're ready, open up Visual Studio Code and we'll get started. Once Visual Studio Code loads, navigate to your Activities directory. We are on Activity 25, so double-click on A25. Once the activity file loads, review the topic and program requirements. Attempt to implement your solution on your own with the video paused. Once completed, resume the video, and I will demonstrate my implementation, as well as provide insights to the activity topic. All right, let's get started. As we can see, this topic is about traits. Our requirements are to calculate the perimeter of a square and a triangle. We are then given the calculations on how to do so. Afterwards, we need to print out the perimeter of the shapes. Our notes indicate that we need to use a trait to declare a perimeter calculation function, and then we need to use a single function to print out the perimeter of the shapes. The function must utilize the IMPL trait as a function parameter. The first thing I'm going to do is create the trait that represents the calculation of the perimeter. I'll call it perimeter, and the trait parameter will have a function named calculates perimeter. It will take a reference to self and return an I32. We will just be using whole number parameters and lengths with our shapes. Next, we need a square and a triangle. So I'll use structures for both of those. I'll start with the square. And the square, all the sides are the same, so we'll just have side, and that can be an I32. I'll then create the triangle. Triangles have 3 sides, so we'll just call each side by a letter. Next, I'm going to create the function that prints out the perimeter. I'll name the function print perimeter. I'll name my function argument shape, and the shape must implement perimeter functionality. We won't return anything since we just need to print the value. Within the function, we then call shape.calculatePerimeter. We'll assign that to a variable named perimeter, and then finally we will print out the perimeter. Next, we need to implement the perimeter trait on both of our shapes, the square and the triangle. I'll start with the square. So to implement the trait, we use the IMPL keyword, the name of the trait, which is perimeter, for square. So again, this reads as implement the perimeter functionality for the square structure. We then need to create the calculate perimeter functionality, since that's the only function that's available within this trait. So I'll do that now. And all we need to do for the square is return the side times 4. And then I'll do the same for the triangle. We'll implement the perimeter functionality for the triangle. We'll then create the calculate perimeter function. And finally, we will return the perimeter, which will be side A plus side B plus side C. Remember to add in self, that way we get the proper side when we're trying to calculate the parameter. The last thing we need to do is create some shapes. I'll start with a square, and our triangle can have side lengths of 2, 3, and 4. Last, we need to print out the perimeter of both shapes. So I'll print the square first, and then I'll just print out the triangle, and that should do it for our program. Before running this program, let's take a walkthrough. To start out, we created a trait. I named the trait perimeter. It has a single function, which is to calculate the perimeter of whatever happens to implement this trait. It takes a reference to self and returns an I32. We then have a structure named square. The square has a side, which is an I32. We then implement the perimeter functionality for the square with the IMPL keyword. Within this block, we need to specify everything that's also within this block. So I do so by creating a calculate perimeter function and simply returning the side length times 4, since it's a square. And the triangle, we do the same thing. We have 3 sides since it's a triangle. We implement the functionality just as we did before, and then we have a different calculation for the perimeter. Next, we have the print perimeter function here on the left. It accepts a shape variable, and the shape variable must implement the perimeter trait. So whatever shape is happened to be passed here, it must implement this trait here. Within the function body, we create a new variable named perimeter. We then call the calculate perimeter function that is implemented on the shape. Then finally, we print out the perimeter through the variable. In our main function, we just create a square and a triangle. The square side length is 5, so the perimeter should be 20. And the triangle side lengths are 2, 3, and 4, so the perimeter should be 9. We then print the perimeter of the square and the triangle, so we should get 20 followed by 9 for our printout. Let's run it and see what we get. To run the program, go to Terminal, New Terminal, cargo run -q -bin. We are on activity 25, so enter A25. And then there we go. We have the perimeter 20 for the square and the perimeter of 9 for the triangle. This concludes the activity on traits. I'll see you in the next presentation.